All right. Okay, so good afternoon all. Thank you for attending this webinar of MPI and customs for the DTR Seafreight project. The team will introduce themselves to you shortly. In the meantime, to start off, you're very welcome. You are reminded that there must be no discussions of prices, surcharge, fees, cost, particular customers, revenue, market shares, or any other commercially sensitive topics. In particular, you are reminded that no market agreements have been or will be decided at meeting of CABEF, whether they involve prices, amount, or areas. Okay, thank you very much. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Karine, and thanks to CABEF, Rosemary Dawson, and the rest of the CABEF team for organizing this webinar. The purpose of today, before I get to that, my name is Sylvester D'Souza. I'm the project manager for the DTR Seafreight project, jointly run by MPI and Customs. The purpose of today's meeting basically is to officially introduce you to the DTR Seafreight project and the project team. We also want to cover a little bit about the background as to DTR Sea project and why it's being run, as well as have a look at the plan and the scope of the project. We want to also look at what do these changes mean to you, and finally we'll touch upon the pilot partner program. So that's our agenda for today. What I'd request you to do is, if you have any questions, please note them down, and we'll take them at the end after we finish our presentation, or you can raise your hand or use the Zoom functionality to ask your questions. So before I get any further, I'd like to introduce the team to you. So on the call, like I said, this is a jointly run project. MPI is leading DTR Seafreight project, and on the call I have with me Carlos.
Good afternoon. My name is Carlos Scuia. I'm a target developer for MPI and MPI lead for the DTR Seafreight project.
And Daniel.
Hi everyone, I'm Daniel Fernando, the change manager on the DTR Seafreight project.
And I've got Stuart.
Oh, hi everybody, I'm Stuart Wiley. I'm with the Border Clearance Service with operations with MPI. Thanks.
Thank you. I can't see the others. We have a couple of others we have a few others from Customs. I can't see them on the call right now, but they're Daniel Petroy, who's from Service Delivery. We've got Caleb Tamahere, who's the technical analyst at Customs. And we have Mark Myers, who manages communications at Customs. So Mark has got COVID, so he won't be able to join us. However, let's continue. So what is DTR? And for those of you who've joined, who were at the CABEF conference in Queenstown, you would have had a look at what DTR is at a high level when Dunya Hassankamp, who's our project executive, presented this. So what is DTR? Basically, DTR, or domestic transshipment request, is the request to move uncleared cargo from any approved facility to another. Now, I'd like to clarify that uncleared cargo means cargo that has not been cleared by Customs and MPI. Now, this is not new functionality. When Trade Single Window was implemented, this functionality did exist. However, it wasn't implemented or mandated back then because it needed to be properly piloted. So what has happened, as a little bit of a background, is DTR air freight was piloted and implemented last year, and I think a lot of you would be familiar with that process. It's the turn of DTRC now to pilot and be implemented as per a plan we've set out. Now, this DTR is required for any point-to-point movement between any custom controlled area / transitional facility. DTRs can be requested using the Trade Single Window directly in it, or using a B2B system to request that. And it's a function of the ICR, which is a functionality inside Trade Single Window. And the response from the agencies would be either an approved or a declined or held for those requests. The intention for implementing DTR is basically to get rid of the paper-based system called the Continuing Collectors Permit, or NZCS 203, or paperless transshipment process. And for MPI, it's a matter of removing some of the legacy systems and improving some sort of efficiency within the process. Do you want to move to the next slide, Daniel? Yeah, just on that one, before a DTRC request does not actually constitute a customs clearance or MPI clearance. It's a direction to move. So here are a couple of milestones. There are a few milestones that we are tracking towards. We kicked off the project in August this year. It's November now. We've gone through a bit of analysis in that period. We're engaging with industry partners like we're doing in this call. Our next milestone would be to commence the pilot in Feb of 2023. And by April of 2023, having gone through sufficient volume, we should be able to confirm what's the full scope of DTRC, and with a view to mandate that by early July. Now, the date of early July was discussed in our initial conversations with KBAF, and it seemed we had August in mind at first, but August, we were told, is the start of a busy period for all of you. So a date of July would be more appreciated. Now, you would have seen this or a version of this in the KBAF conference. We are in November at the moment, and we've finished our initial analysis. We've got a communication plan going. We've identified all our stakeholders, had initial conversations with them. And now we move on to the develop phase, where now, having locked in our scope, we want to go out to the industry and get them to make the changes to their systems and processes to be ready to pilot and or ready for go live. In Feb, we will get onto the pilot program. We'll talk about that a little bit more further down the slide pack. And whilst we're doing the pilot program, we will have regular catch-ups and reviews and do updates. In April, we want to be very clear about what the final scope of DTR is. So we've got a line in the sand by the end of April. From May onwards, we will be heading towards our mandated date of July. So all preparations will be towards developing a business continuity plan, making a decision sometime in June around whether we should go or no go, and then finally go live. At the end of July, after that, we go into project support mode, and all of this then becomes BAU, or business as usual, and this project will wrap up and hand over back to the business. So, like I said earlier, this is a joint project. Our project is sponsored by the Group Manager, Revenue and Assurance at Customs, as well as the Director of Intelligence and Biosecurity Services at MPI. We've got a project board that's by Dunya Hassan-Kamp. You would have seen her at KBAF. She's the project executive on the MPI side, and it's got a good mix of MPI and customs folk at the project governance level. Project team consists of two sets of teams, and you're seeing some of them on the screen today. The rest are probably on the call. They are helping us pull together the analysis, some of the data, process mapping, conversations, communications, and so on. And in the project construct, we also have project champions, people whom we've identified, who will be our people, eyes and ears on the ground, especially at ports. And these are the people that will liaise directly with port companies, pick up issues, disseminate information, be the contact points, and so on. So we're trying to provide as much coverage as possible through this project structure. Next one, Daniel. Yeah, so who are our stakeholders? Our stakeholders are definitely you folk from KBAF, all you members who are high impacted stakeholders. We have port companies who are another highly impacted stakeholder. In our mix, we're also looking at shipping companies who have to play part of the process in DTR. We have transport companies whom we have covered or captured in our radar so that we don't lose them out, being a critical partner to the logistics function of this country. And definitely we have the CCA and transitional facility operators who also are impacted in some shape or form. And as we go through the pilot, as we go through the process, we should be able to understand what those impacts are and massage our processes accordingly. Right, we'll move on to high level scope and I'll hand over to Carlos at this point.
Cool. Thanks, Professor. So the high level scope for DTR Seafreight. So we've broken this down by transport mode. So FCLs, FAK containers, so containers, groupage containers containing multiple LCL consignments. LCL consignments can be themselves, or maybe like loose consignments, it's a different terminology. Empty containers, bulk cargo, and then break bulk. So for the pilot itself, for FCLs, it's partially in scope. So we'll be looking at the DTR movement of FCLs via sea only. So when that's a FCL container moving from port to port via sea, FCLs which are traveling overland to a transitional facility, CCA, are currently out of scope. For pilot, continuing permission to collect permits for customs will still be in use. And both the MPI and customs team are going to be assessing throughout pilot and doing some work in the background around the FCL movement requests to confirm what process will be implemented come April when we finalise that scope. So MPI and customs are going to be trialling some FCL movements where possible to evaluate some of those options as part of a pilot. If you become a pilot partner, we'll also be asking you to record down some information for us as well, which is super important to look at those different kinds of movements, which are moving on a, say, a collector's permit or a IPI lodgement or a primary industries import declaration. So both agencies are looking to attempt to resolve way forward to include FCLs and break bulk within the scope. FAK or groupage containers are in scope completely, and so is LCL. Empty containers are not currently in scope for pilot. The current processes still apply. Use empty containers are cleared at the port of first arrival. They go through, they're reported on by ICR, go through sampling and have direction issues straight away. Bulk cargo arriving in the hulls of ships and things like that, currently our scope. And break bulk cargo, which is non-containerized cargo coming on a vessel like vehicles and excavators and things like that, is pretty much in the same space as FCL. So we'll be looking at what possible options are there for those transport modes. Danny. So as many of you may be aware, so the DTR request is submitted on the ICR lodgement or inwards cargo report. It's a message type submitted through TSW and contains about 3 or 4 different fields, which is requesting the DTR movement. The responses that you're going to get back from TSW from both agencies will either be a approval for that domestic transshipment, resulting in a DTA, DTD, which is the domestic transshipment declined, or may also be a held while we're processing the lodgement. And you're going to get 2 responses back for each lodgement, and that's going to be a response for customs and 1 response for MPI as well. And if you're using a B2B system, it's the same. If you're using TSW online, you'll get a response back from each agency stating what the DTR, the overall DTR movement request is approved or not. So just a quick example of some of the email responses that get sent back. So we can see at the top, there's both an NZCS and an MPI bio instruction. In this case, for both saying movement is approved. There's some additional conditions around the movement linked to the MPI response. We have container and packaging information relating to the container details and some consignment details. And then at the bottom there, we have domestic transshipment approval. So it's going to give approval from the location of goods, where the goods or the cargo currently are, to the transit destination, where the facility is that you are requesting movement for, and also the method of transfer to that facility, whether that's going to be going by sea, or road or rail or multimodal. If you're using a B2B system, which majority of people are, you're also getting these B2B notifications coming back to your system. But all the information here in this email example is there as well in your message. So there's some slides coming through, which can be sent out to our partners and be posted on the customs website as well. Just some infographics to help understand what is able to move, as Sylvester already pointed out. And just like in the DTR air project, each leg of that journey, or each movement, each point-to-point movement is a DTR request. And the DTR itself can be lodged by a shipping company, an agent, freight forwarding company, as long as they're a registered TSW user. So one of the examples we have here is a port-to-port movement via sea. So where goods arrive at discharged at a port and then are required to move to a different port. For example, if something comes into Auckland Port and it's been travelling by vessel down to Christchurch Port or Littleton, then that would equate to a DTR request to make sure that movement is approved. All transport mode or consignment types are eligible, so FAK, FCLs. LCLs would be an unlikely one in this particular scenario, or break bulk cargo. The originating, in this scenario, originating location of goods is going to be the POFA, or port of discharge, and then the transit destination that the goods are going to be taken to is going to be another port or another seaport, and the movement is only going to be approved when it's going via sea. Again, another scenario, facility to facility movements by road or rail. So as part of a pilot, we're looking at FAK and LCL movements. So this is for goods moving inland to a transitional facility and CCA. So the consignment will originate either from already be at a TF or CCA, moving to another TF CCA, or from a port to a TF CCA, and can go by road or rail. And just another example here around the use of ITR. So the ITR message is already in place and it's being used by a number of you. This is where there's an international transshipment. So it's where goods are coming into New Zealand and then are being transshipped straight back out. So the international transshipment, like the DTR, it actually covers the first movement. So if those goods are sitting at a transitional facility TF, which is off the wharf, and you need to move it to the port to then jump on a vessel that then goes out offshore, then that's actually not a DTR, it's an international transshipment, so it's an ITR request, because the ITR covers that final leg movement to the port where it's going to be jumping on a vessel and going offshore. And there might be there'll be some additional scenarios that are being drawn up as we come across them to flesh them out, if there's any kind of edge cases or something a little bit more specific. So what do these changes mean? So it's going to be a function of the inwards cargo report. As we know, the customs continuing permission NZCS 203 or the collector's permit will be discontinued along with the customs paperless transshipment. There's no restrictions on who can submit a DTR. Just like an air freight, DTR can be submitted by freight forwarders, approved facility operators, shipping lines, or anyone who has an interest in moving the container or the cargo. The MPI direction will be given on a DTR for an FAK for FAK container movements. So currently, the movement of FAKs are submitted on an IPI lodgement or through some legacy systems. So that's going to be a big change, because we do have a great number of FAKs that applied for. They're going to be now applied for on the ICR. And again, the conditions of approval have to be adhered to. So it's really important that when submitting a DTR, the mode of transfer is quite critical to put in as well, whether it's going to be going by road or rail or by sea. Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, Carlos. For our joint agency pilot, we anticipate this to start from February 2023. We will have this pilot run in the trade single window production system only, and once you're onboarded by us, we expect you to use the trade single window production system until the mandate is implemented. This pilot will be important for all freight forwarders, as you'll need to make sure that your system has the ability to submit inward cargo reports and domestic transshipment requests. MPI and Customs will be here to assist you with any questions or concerns you may have. We've recently put together a DTRC FAQs, which is available on the Customs website. In addition, we will also provide you with scenarios, as mentioned by Carlos and Sylvester, as part of our comms approach. Furthermore, the green tick box on the right highlights the key steps to ensure pilot partner readiness. And the red box at the bottom highlights that during the pilot, manual processes will be available. However, we do please ask that when you're on the pilot, that you only use the electronic DTR to avoid dual processing. I will now pass over to Sylvester to take us through the Q&A session.
Thanks, Daniel. Just a call out on this slide. The intent of the pilot is to do this jointly and collaboratively. So we need to work closely to ensure that this entire project is successful. We value your feedback and your participation. So I'd like to thank all those who reached out to me initially after the KBAF conference, to put their hand up to become pilot partners, and we've definitely added you to the list. There'll be a lot more communication directly with those whom we've identified as the first cab off the rank for pilot partners. Everyone will come on board, but it requires a degree of readiness on your part, and we will have a program in place. So there'll be a lot more detail to come. So that's all I had to say on the pilot program. So looking forward to it. Okay, we move to the questions session now. We've finished presenting what we had to. So as a bottom line, if you have any questions, doesn't have to be here, but if you have any questions, please feel free to raise them directly in the mailbox using dtr@mpi.govt.nz or through Emma Walsh from KBAF, who is your point of escalation through whom you can come to us. I do have regular catch-ups with Emma, and we keep Emma closely updated. So over to you guys for questions. Feel free to type, or I don't know whether you can raise your hand. I think you can.
Okay, so feel free to type any questions you have in the Q&A box, or raise your hand and we can turn your microphone on.
Hi, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
Okay. Just the box on the chat says the host has disabled attendee chat. So That might need to be switched on. I just wanted to check because you guys were talking about making sure our system has the ability to submit the inward cargo report and DTRs. We've been asking for some time because we have an in-house system for assistance so that we can submit these, and we've been told basically that we just need to wait until the pilot's complete. So who can we go to help get the information that we need to build this system, to build it into our system?
Okay, do you do you currently have the ability to submit an ICR at all, like the ICR message, or not at all? Just import declarations?
The only way we can do it is by creating an entirely separate job in CargoWise, which obviously we don't want to do because it costs us money. We'd rather do it in our own system.
Oh, okay. So you got a separate system to CargoWise. You've got your own system.
So we used to lodge our BACCs for our FAKs through our own system, but then that was through B2B, which has since been switched off. So we've been using CargoWise, waiting to be told the information to create this build. So far, we've got nothing.
Okay, we do have some of our tech people, Adrian Winter from the MPI side, Caleb Tamahiri from the custom side as well. So if you would like to send that through to just send some info through to the DTR MPI inbox. Once we get that email, we'll be able to pass it on to put you in touch with the tech folk from our side, and they should hopefully be able to address some of that.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Which organization is this, Rachel?
Vanguard.
Vanguard. Okay.
Yep, thanks.
Okay, so just as a reminder, the chat is turned off for attendees, but you can open the Q&A and type any question you have in there or raise your hand.
Just one other thing, there is also some basic FAQs which have just gone up onto the customer's website. I believe they went up on Monday today, so that's also a good starting point, and we'll be able to send that link out as well as part of this packet to everyone or the attendees after this meeting. So that's quite handy as well, and we'll be looking at updating those FAQs as we go along, pre-pilot and throughout the pilot as well. So any new information that we're getting questions from anyone which is relevant to the wider group of stakeholders, we'll be throwing those questions up there as well. So that's also a good resource to look at.
You do have another question from an attendee. Do you know if CargoWise have set up something in their system where DTR can be submitted, or would we need to reach out as an individual and see what we need to do?
Sorry, Karen.
Sorry, we know that CargoWise has set up the system for air freight. So the shift for upgrading it to Seafreight is, we're anticipating is not that big. However, we will reach out to CargoWise from the technical perspective around what changes need to happen. I think commercially, it still sits with you and CargoWise as a commercial relationship in order to make sure that has happened. Yes, however, whatever CargoWise needs, we will provide that as information. Sorry, Carlos.
No, I was pretty much going to say the same thing. And also, this is also just the first of many catch-ups, because we do want to stay engaged with all the stakeholders across this project. So this was just a bit of an introduction, but then going forward, we will be having monthly meetings, and we'll make sure that there are a lot of avenues in which to reach out. So whether that be through the DTR email, through email KBAF, or through your MPI and customs DTR project champions at each region as well.
Yeah, you're right. So this is the first of many. We will have a monthly catch up. I think we've called out that December won't happen as a webinar. We will send an email update, but thereafter every month it'll be a webinar like this one.
Okay. I don't see any more questions coming in or anybody raising their hands. So
Okay, if there aren't
Yeah.
any more questions, please feel free to reach out, like we said, using the email function. Daniel, through this mailbox, will send out the spec to everyone who was on the call or everyone's on the mailing list. Yeah, and thank you for joining this call, and thanks again, KBAF, for organizing this.
pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.